Hello everyone, welcome to the class. This is an introduction to tattooing and a small history on the art of tattooing from the beginning in prehistoric times till now and why we use them as we do with tattoos. Revelation 19:16 says, "And he hath on his vesture and on his thigh a name written, King of Kings, Lord of Lords." Man's fascination with tattooing dates back to the Egyptians and continues as an art form to the present day. Based on my research of tattoos, I will present information about the history and variety of methods used throughout diverse cultures and the reasons for the rise, the fall, and again the regeneration of that here in the modern day. Throughout history, tattoos have gone from socially acceptable in various cultures to taboo, and is now steadily becoming a way of expression for those that wish to get in touch with their past cultures. During the minutes that follow, I'll tell you how tattooing started, how it impacts society today by showing a historical timeline for tattooing, as well as by explaining the outlooks on tattoos in the past and in modern times. So tattoos on humans are a type of decorative body modification, while tattoos on animals are most commonly used for identification or branding. There is a tattoo form called branding, which has the same idea as tattooing, but they use a brand instead, or they cut out of the flesh for that. And it has been practiced worldwide throughout history. The earliest date, we have the ancient Egyptians using tattoos as decorations, and then the really earliest one is about 35 to 4000 BC, and that was a 5,000-year-old Iceman who was discovered in the Swiss Alps. He had tattoos on joints, mainly where there would be arthritic purposes on that. He had crosses and different types of tattoos on his body. So he's the best preserved body ever found to date, and he's had 57 tattoos in various locations all over his body. Also, tattoos have been found throughout the Celtic cultures of Europe, but were banned by Pope Hadrian's edict in 787. He referred to the Old Testament passage, Leviticus 19:28, "Do not cut your bodies for the dead, nor put marks upon you." And despite his edict, tattooing was still popular in Britain until the Norman invasion of 1066. That's when it really started to die out again. From this point on in European history, tattoo became secretive and a primitive art form that subverted proper Christian beliefs. So the Celtic tribes and the Picts and those would still keep with those. In fact, Pict means picture. By the Romans, they would go into battle with them and they'd have tattoos all over the body, so they would call them Picts because they did have pictures on their body. They can also be found throughout Asia, Japan, the Americas, and in the Polynesian Islands. And when they hit the Polynesian Islands, once they started the Age of Discovery again, taking the big ships overseas and finding new lands and new cultures, it really started to come back. Asia and Japan had always had the tattoo art. In fact, they had body art that can encompass their entire body. So that's part of their belief as well. What really started, and we'll talk about the European side, the art of tattooing really was introduced really around the end of the 17th century, when the indigenous tribesmen of the Pacific Islands were brought to London. They created really a huge stir. Behind me you can see the pictures we have of that. This is one of the Maori people. This is one of the portraits that was painted for that, and you can see the facial tattoo art. That is done for culture and also to describe which tribe he's from. Each tribe had their own pattern, they had their own technique of doing that. One thing about that, it was very, very painful. If anybody's ever had a tattoo, it is very painful in certain areas. The face would probably be one of the most sensitive places. People would die from this type of tattooing. So it was part of their culture, and it was part of their heritage on that. Below we see on the arm, this is more of a modern day, this is The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, and he's also Maori, so he had his tattooed, his Polynesian, on his arm. So he's still looking for that, and that's the difference between the ancient and the modern. They're still trying to tie that culture together and really get your roots going with that. Since it was all done by hand, again, it was very painful, and it was very expensive. So in London at that time, the only people who could really afford it would be the aristocrats and those sorts of types of people. They didn't want anything to show because appearances were very, very important to them. So what they would do is they would tattoo their body in places where they would not be able to see them. In the Army today, we have strictures on how we can have tattoos and where we can place tattoos, what type of tattoos we can have. And it was kind of the same idea back in the 1700s as well. So they didn't have anything above the neck, on the arms, below the wrist, anywhere where you could see tattooing. That later kind of went away as as circus people would get tattoos from head to toe, like the Japanese or the Maori. They started looking at those, and so it became kind of a sideshow act in a way. In 1891, American Samuel O'Reilly patented the electronic tattooing machine from the one invented in London earlier that year. He based it on the perforated pen invented by Thomas Edison. So Thomas Edison gave us the light bulb, he also gave us tattooing. It's a great thing. The 20th century, again, tattooing was thought of as a counterculture movement in the 1930s. Circus sideshows, again, talking about that. And then later in the retaliation of the 60s and 70s, with war protesters, it started being with hippies and bikers and different cultures with that. Also, because of the Navy and going from port to port, they had the sailors. Good and bad connotations on that. Hi, how are you? But today getting a tattoo is a really popular choice for both the old and the young. A recent study estimates that 36% of Americans between the ages of 18 and 29 have at least one tattoo. And between 18 to 50 years of age, 24% of Americans have a tattoo. That's brought to you by FoxNews.com on that. So as you can see, the art of tattooing has a long and rich history, from its ancient roots to today's modern vision of self-expression. Looking at the various cultures and traditions, tattooing has been an ongoing part of culture and still helps to define it. Historically, tattoos have been part of the counterculture movement and held appeal for those seeking their own expression of individualism. Today, tattoos are more diverse than ever, and these markings give tattoo wearers the opportunity to say something unique with their choices, making themselves unique. In closing, humans have marked their bodies with tattoos for thousands of years. These permanent designs, whether elaborate or plain, have always been personal and served as status symbol, declarations of love for moms, and signs of religious beliefs. Thank you.